start solving today's Leetcode Daily Challenge question. So the question is minimum number of days to disconnect island. Okay. So you are given an m cross n binary grid where 1 represents land and 0 represents water, and island is a maximal 4 directionally connected group of ones. Okay. So the grid is said to be connected if we have exactly one island, otherwise it is said to be disconnected. Okay, it is said disconnected. In one day, we are allowed to change any single land cell 1 into water cell 0. Okay, so we have to return the minimum number of days to disconnect the grid. So let's see an example. In this example, we can see there is only one island. So here the grid is said to be connected if we have exactly one island. Okay, and we have to make this grid as disconnected. Okay, so we have to return minimum number of days which are needed to disconnect the grid. Okay, in one day we can change one cell, that is convert 1 into 0. Okay, so here we can see only one island is present. So to make this grid disconnect, we have to change two cells to 1 to 0. So then we have two different island, that is disconnected grid. Okay, so minimum number of days are 2 because we have done. So you can consider two operation as number of operations which we have to make, that is convert 1 to 0 to make the grid disconnected. And what is disconnected grid means we have multiple number of islands. If we have only one island in this grid, that means it is connected. Okay, so if we see this example, only two cells are present, both are one. Okay, and we can say this is only one island which is present. To make this disconnected, okay, so we have to convert this both as 0. Okay, so you can see 0. So here we have let's say example. Okay, let's say this is our grid, and here, okay, here we have one. Okay, this is only one island present. So it is connected or disconnected grid? It is connected because we have only one exact island. To make this as disconnected, we have to make this 0. So only all these are 0. Okay, if it is empty. So yeah. So here we needed only one operation to make this grid as disconnected. Okay. So we have, this is one. Again, let's say we have already, okay, let's say we have already this. Okay, so here how many number of islands are present? Two different islands are present, so it is already disconnected, so our answer will be 0. Okay, so let's say this example, and this example, to make this disconnected, what we can make, we have to change. Okay, we have to return minimum, right? Or we can make all this as 0. Okay, but we have to return minimum number. So for this middle, so this is a one island. Okay, this total is one island. To make it disconnected, we have to make this 1 to 0. Then we get two different islands, that is we get disconnected grid. Okay, so we are returning 1. So what is case of 0? When we will return 0? When our island is already, when our grid is already disconnected, that is it contains multiple islands. When when we will return 1 as answer, when we will check. So suppose, okay, here we have three ones. Okay, and only one island. Okay, so we can check with, if we convert this 1 to 0, then can we find this as a disconnected grid? No. Okay, because still there is only one island. Okay, so here we will we will check with each one. So here if we change this one to 0, is this a disconnected grid? Yes, it is. Okay, or let's say if we change this one to 0 and it was same, let's keep it as the same, then is this a disconnected grid? No, because one island is present. Okay, one connected island is present, so that is a connected grid, and we have to make disconnected, right? So we will check with each one. Okay, so if here, okay, so in this way we can make this as disconnected and we will return answer. So other than this, if any, so let's say if we have this one, this one. Okay, is this connected? Only one island present? Yes. So to make it disconnected, what is island is it? It is for all four directions. So here for this, left, up, down, and right. If it is connected anywhere, then we can say this is single one. Okay. So this is a single island. Okay, so if we cannot do it only one single cell to convert this number 1 to 0, then we can make use of like two, change two cells and make it as a disconnected. So you can see these are disconnected because this, for this cell, okay, for this cell, its adjacent are this, only this. So this is considered as a single island, and this we can consider as single island, okay, because we don't see diagonally, we can only see adjacent, that is up, left, right, and down. Okay, so we have to make two operation. So if we see, so we have only three, we can have only three answers, that is 0, 1, and 2. 0 when it is already disconnected, 1 when we will check with each one, okay, each cell, to change this to land to water, and check if it is disconnected. If we don't get any answer, that if let's say in this same example, okay, in this same example, this was our example. So let's check from here. If we remove, if we change this 1 to 0, is this a disconnected? No, all are connected. So now check with this. Is this disconnected? No. Now check with this. Is this disconnected? No. All are connected, right? So check with this. Yeah. Here we can see this is disconnected because all we got this three and this one. Okay. So we can say this. We can return for this example one as answer. But if we don't have this number, okay, if we don't have this number 1, then can we say this is disconnected? No, right? So in this case, what we have to do, we have to return 2, because we can change this diagonally too, so we can make this 2 as disconnected. Okay, so here we have only answer as 0, 1, and 2. If we are getting answer with 1, then we don't have to check for 2, and if we don't get any answer for 1, then definitely the answer will be 2. Okay, so let's start coding. So here we will use, this is like a number of islands, okay, question. So here we will be using the DFS algorithm. First what we have to check is, first we have to write a method where we will count the number of islands, okay, and again we have to count number of islands when, for this example, let's say here I'll check for this one. If I'll make this one as a 0 and check number of islands present in a grid, I'll make this one as a 0, then I'll check again. This same way I have to do and check for all ones. And if we don't get answer for one, or only one cell to convert as 0, then we will return 2 as our answer. Okay, so we will be, let's say first is our, let's say, count island. Okay, here we will pass our grid, and if we say, if we don't get any, if it is not equal to 1, then what we will return, first we are checking how many number of islands, we have to write this method, okay, but I'm just writing first condition for returning 0. Okay, so if we count number of islands in a grid, then if we don't get 1, that means only there's we can get 0 or we can get multiple, so then we have to return 0, okay, because it is already disconnected, right? Now for each one we have to check. Now int I is equal to 0 to I less than grid dot length I plus plus, for int j is equal to 0, j is less than grid of 0 dot length j plus plus. Okay, now here we have to check what, we have to make our grid as, we have to make grid as what, grid of I, grid of j is equal to what is equal to, we have to make it as a 0, that is we are converting this 1 to 0. Okay, so here then we will check with this number of island. Okay, so here we will pass our grid, and we will check. If we don't get, if it is not equal to 1, that means we this change has made our grid as disconnected. Okay, so we will return our 1. And again, after this, okay, for next loop, okay, for next one, what we have changed this one as 0, right? And then if we get our answer as 1, okay, still there's only one island. For using this one to convert this one to 0, which has no changes. Okay, so which didn't that means we didn't get disconnected grid. Okay, so we have to again do this grade of I and j equal to as it original at 1. Here again we have to check, right? We have to check if our grade of I j is equal to 1. Okay, means if our cell is 1, then only we are checking with this, right? Yeah, this condition. If our, wait, yeah, so if our cell, because for 0 we don't have to check, we have to check only for 1. So if our cell, grid cell has value 1, then only we will make it as 0 and call this method count number of island and pass this grid. And if we don't get 1 as our answer, okay, then we will return 1, because we have only made this only one change which led us to get disconnected grid. Otherwise we'll make it as original value, we'll give the same original value, and we'll check for the next one. Okay, now at the end we will return 2 if we don't get any solution for changing one cell once. Okay, now let's write this count number of islands method. Int, it will return int number of island. Okay, so here we are giving input as grid. Okay, now for checking count number of island, we are using DFS, right? So in DFS we can use recursion. We need a boolean array for visited. Okay, visited. Now int, or not, we can pass from here also, no issue. Okay, what will be the size? Size will be grid dot length and grid of 0 dot length. Okay, so now what we have to do is int, let's say number of island. Initially it will be 0. Now we will int I equal to 0, I less than grid dot length I plus plus. For int j is equal to 0, j is equal to 0, j less than grid of 0 dot length j plus plus. Okay, now here what we have to do is we are counting number of islands, right? It is like this. Okay, for one we will count. If we get if we don't get any adjacent ones, then it will return we are using DFS, so we have to call the DFS. Okay, so here what will be our condition? If our visited of I j is not okay, and as we are writing boolean, right? So if it is not visited, and what if the value of grid, if grid of I j is equal to 1, then okay, then we will what we will call a BFS method. Okay, so DFS, we will pass our grid, and we will pass I, we will pass j, we will pass what, we will pass visited array. Okay, that means if that cell is not visited and that cell has number 1, then we will call this DFS method here. Okay, now we have to count also, right? Then we will count island plus plus. Okay, so here if we see, okay, after changing this 0, okay, this one, and if we are checking in all direction, so for this one we'll check downward, left, right, and up. Okay, if we don't get anyone, okay, then we are returning. So this DFS method will return and we'll come again here, and for the next iteration it is not visited, right? So we'll check with this. So in this way we get number of islands. And here this is okay. Now we have to return island. Okay, so for this, then okay, now we have to write DFS method. Why DFS? Here what we are passing, int grid, okay, and int I, int j, and int visited array. Okay, so here what we have to do is first make our this as visited I and j, this cell as true, that it is visited. Now we need to check for all the directions, right? So let's say this direction array. Okay, so for all four direction, so it will be 0 comma 1, 1 comma 0, minus 1 comma 0, 0 comma minus 1. Okay, so these are all direction. So we have to check for all direction, and let's say D and direction. Now we have to add this with our I and j. Okay, so let's say int new row is equal to, or let's say n row is equal to I plus direction of 0, and int n column is equal to j plus direction of 1. Okay, now it will check with all the direction. Now here if okay, if this is valid also, we have to check, right? Row, here you can see for this upward, like in the above direction, okay, this cell doesn't exist, so we have to check with the condition that n row is less than or equal to 0, and n row is greater than grid dot length, and okay, and n column is greater than or equal to 0, and n col is less than what, grid of 0 dot length, and it the value of this row, okay, it's adjacent, whatever in the direction should be 1. Okay, then only we'll call same DFS. So the grid of what, new row and new column value is equal to should be 1, and it is not visited. Okay, if it is not visited, then only we will check with it, right? So visited of n row and n column. Okay, as it is a boolean array, we can say not of. Okay, so if this satisfies, then we will call our DFS again with this new row and new column. Okay, grid, then again new row, new column, and our visited array. Okay, so like that we can solve. Let's run. So we have our direction D. Wait, here we have made this error. So it is D direction D, right? Yeah, same compilation. And yeah. Again here it is boolean, not int. Yeah, here we are passing this boolean array, right? Here also it is boolean. Okay, So we are getting 0, 0. Let's check conditions. So here we can see our n row should be greater than or equal to 0 and less than grade. Similarly, this is correct. N column should be greater than or equal to 0 and less than grade. So let's check now. Hmm. Now we can see accepted. So yeah. So this condition was we wrote wrong. Okay. So it should be greater than or equal to 0. Definitely index should be greater than 0 and less than its length, right? Okay. So let's submit. So using DFS algorithm and make yeah, last question, yesterday's question, daily challenge question is similar to this only. So there also we used this concept, or we use similar concept like flat fill algorithm. So you can watch this video before this, and if this video is helpful to you, please like this video and subscribe my channel. Thank you. So you can see our solution got accepted.